jump in. Welcome to the Stoa, everyone. Today we have Dave Oshana visiting us. Dave created something called, or he does something called Enlightenment transmission. And here's a blurb from the event description, which Dave sent me. And this is Dave. After 22 years of exploring and demystifying his own enlightenment, he's better able to guide others in results-driven fashion in plain English and non-verbally. And we had a really fun session with Dave this time last year, actually, and he emailed me wanting to come back to the Stoa for a session called Seeking Enlightenment, Relationships, and the Nervous System. So how today is going to work, we're here for 90 minutes, and I'm just going to hand the keys over to Dave, and he's going to do his thing. I have no idea what's going to happen. And it's not going to be a typical Stoa session, so it's not like the Q&A protocol. I imagine Dave will explain how things will happen. And then Dave was going to hand the keys back to me after the 90 minutes are up. So that being said, Dave, welcome back to the Stoa, and keys are yours.
Thanks, Peter. I'm happy to be here. So I see there's quite a few people here, but I actually don't see very many of you. It's a bit like living in Manhattan, and you know, all those people are behind those windows, and they're looking at you, but you can't see in there. So it'd be good if I can see you here, because today's event, I'm hoping that it's an experience. I don't know how many of you thought it was going to be some kind of dry, dusty, philosophical, conceptual, hair-splitting lecture. Did anyone want that? Or did anyone want an experience? David did. He fibs. So my story starts with getting enlightened 22 years ago. And because I got enlightened 22 years ago, since then, I've been sharing it. I'm a bit like a young schoolboy in the playground who's just chewed his first stick of bubble gum and wants to split it in half and share it with you. You can forgive that, can't you? That naive, enthusiastic innocence that knows no bounds and that doesn't censor itself. So I've literally been like that for 22 years. I went from being a not completely shy and introverted individual, but I was a private person, and my background is in psychology, computing, and artificial intelligence, and that might sound like impressive, but it just meant that I was somewhat introverted and thought a lot and didn't really open myself up to experiencing life as much as I wanted to. And that all started to change a couple of years before I got enlightened, because I started to get into using my body, feeling my senses, and moving with people, dance, massage, various things like that. And I guess I came online not a moment too late. It was the year 2000. We were all expecting that the Y2K bug would bring the whole system crashing down. And anyway, so I got enlightened in the year 2000. And what happened was I seemed to have lost Dave 1.0. Well, I shouldn't say that, because now it sounds like I'm just an upgrade. But I seem to have lost Dave. And because I lost Dave, my senses were able to open. It's a bit like, imagine, for example, that you're living in a house and your personality is creating a gas and a cloud and a fog so much so that it steams up the windows. You can't see the hand in front of your eyes. You can't quite hear or figure out where the voices are coming from inside your psychic space. Since a young age, I had been doing yoga and meditation, but I couldn't kill my ego. Maybe that's no surprise to some of you. I couldn't get rid of the thoughts inside my head, and I found myself experiencing high amounts of emotional overload. And coming from the neighborhood and the background that I come from, being an emotional, weepy, whiny little crybaby who constantly wants to go to the toilet didn't go down very well. So I had to put my emotions away somewhere, toughen myself up by doing the lotus position, putting my feet behind the back of my head, planking, headstands, stuff like that. But it didn't actually solve my problems of an overactive mind, emotions that I couldn't control. And basically, I had an identity that was on the run, running amok inside myself, and I didn't know what to do about it. So I prostrated my feet. Sorry. I'm rushing ahead here. I was a little bit late coming in, so I'm rushing. I prostrated myself at the feet of gurus and submitted myself to all kinds of austerities and indignities, particularly inside an ashram, living a saintly, priestly mode of existence called brahmacharya, where you have to strap your bollocks with a piece of cheesecloth. I didn't want to say that, but I do have Tourette's syndrome, and that just slipped out. And all kinds of other indignities that we had to do, cleaning toilets and stairs as people were walking up and down them, and various things like that. Anyway, so I did a lot of stuff, and none of it worked. None of it worked. So I am a cautionary tale, if that's all you want to take me as. Like, don't do it like Dave did it. On the other hand, if you want to go a little bit further, I can tell you as best as I can figure out how I got rid of Dave and went on a perpetual holiday for the rest of my life, maybe the rest of existence. Maybe I jumped off of the wheel of karma. Who knows? That's a little bit too complicated for me. I don't have much education. So anyway, today's event, enough of the preamble. Today's event is called Seeking Enlightenment, Relationships and Nervous Systems. Okay, it's today's talk. Now I have to calm myself down and tune into what's going on. So the way that I actually work is invisible. So at the moment, I'm giving you a talk so that I don't actually start connecting with you too penetratingly deep. Because all I really want to do, and I blame my mum actually. I mean, isn't that what everyone does? I blame my mum for taking her breast away from me. Somewhere, I figured that must have happened. She must have taken her breast away from me before I finished feeding. And it's probably traumatized me. And I probably became very needy and grabby. And so having not got rid of this habit, all I really want to do is I want to go up to this computer screen here. I want to tap on it. I want to reach into it, and I want to start pulling people out. I don't care what state they're in, whether they just had their breakfast or whether they're in their night clothes going to sleep right now. I want to pull everyone onto this side. Now, I told you this wasn't going to be an ordinary lecture. For those of you who are new to my presentation style, I promise you one thing: not pain. that's Mr. T in Rocky. I promise you that it will all come together by the end, and that you will want to watch the replay of this that will be on my channel and Peter's channel, or the Stower's channel. It will be there on YouTube, and you will want to come back to this many, many times over, because you will recognize that my way of speaking and presenting is a multi-dimensional layered cake of entertainment, exploration, experience, and of course enlightenment. I'll just say something about enlightenment first, since it's the first thing in my title. Enlightenment, the way that I see it is, enlightenment is yourself in all of your pristine glory. It's like a new car, perhaps, without any mud, without any grit from the road. Snowed here properly for the first time today. I'm in Finland. Anyway, so cars, right? So shiny, new, no stains or blemishes, no mud, hasn't even driven off the forecourt yet. That's the original you. And then for some reason, the original you, which is invisible, intangible, kind of, not palpable, kind of. I say kind of because if you feel anything more than anything else, it's yourself, or some aspect of yourself. If you're feeling anything right now, it's not me, it's not Zoom, it's not the other people here, although you might think that you feel them, but in fact, you're having some kind of relationship with yourself right now. And that can take on various forms, just like you can have an experience of your foot, or you can have an experience of your foot being squashed in a shoe, or you can have experience of what we call a verruca, but I think they call it a planner's wart or something in America. You can have an experience of blister on your foot, but all of those experiences actually show you, they demonstrate to you that you have a foot. And similarly, right now, all of the experiences that you're having, whether they be supposedly external, like what's coming into your visual field right now, or what's coming into your auditory field right now, actually they're all being received in a place that supposedly, according to Dr. Dan Siegel, who I met when he came over here, supposedly no one knows where it goes. No one has a definition of mind. But it goes somewhere inside you, and because it goes somewhere inside you in a place that no one can quite define, but psychologists are trying to reach into there, and they're trying to say something useful. And I had an idea, and I'm digressing seemingly. I had an idea just before this meeting, somewhere between combing my hair and brushing my teeth. I had an idea. I was thinking about behaviorism. I remember that in my department of psychology, they told me that behaviorism wasn't followed anymore. I had an epiphany as my teeth were foaming under the toothpaste. And I realized that probably behaviorism is actually at a very advanced state of application at this time. And you'll notice, and I am digressing here for reasons unknown to myself, but I trust the wind. I had a insight, because I realized that what is it that during the last two and a half years of what is it that has started to bubble to the forefront of public discourse. Well, all kinds of things. But what's really bubbled to the forefront of public discourse in the kind of circles that we move in is the word trauma. And I was thinking, as I was when I was rinsing my mouth out, I was thinking that trauma is the programming of the nervous system. It's writing code on people's nervous system. It is putting suggestions into it that have the capability to cause a person to experience certain emotions upon command. It is the ability to make a person averse to things, people, places, and processes that they wouldn't otherwise be averse to. I bet there are some places in the world that you are sure you don't want to travel to, and yet you know absolutely nothing about it, but you're averse to going there. And similarly it is with many things in life, experiences, people, ways of being. You're absolutely averse to it, and yet you haven't got the first clue what it entails. Something has programmed your nervous system. Now, why would that interest me? Why have I got enlightenment in my title, and in the middle I've got relationships, and at the end I've got nervous system? Why would that interest me? Well, to be honest, I'm going to make up the answer. To be honest, I actually make up everything that I talk about. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm not very good with words and concepts. Ever since I found them when I was 1 or 2 years old, they were like wooden building blocks. I didn't know what to do with them. I just would put one on top of the other. And if it made a pleasing pattern and I got a round of applause from my mum, then I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing it. You see, I'm not saying this just about myself, and I'm not here just to talk about myself. On the sly, I'm really talking about you. Someone called it a backhanded compliment when they wrote to me yesterday, but they got it back to front. They said, in a kind of insulting way, I'm trying to compliment the effect you've had on me in the brief period of time that I've known you. But I wrote back to them because I looked it up online. I said, no, a backhanded compliment is where you apparently praise someone, but really you're insulting them. But as my mum says, it's the thought that counts, and I appreciated the gesture. Anyway, the thing is, if someone insults me, I'll take the good from it. I'll always take the good from it. In fact, many people don't mind being spanked, abused. I mean, I shouldn't say that, and insulted. Why? Because they're desperate for human contact. I'm not saying these are great things or good things or things that should exist in our new, glorious, brave new world where we pay a lot of money for fuel and food and things like that. I'm not saying that they have a place there, but I'm saying that we have become so contact hungry. And the thing is that we were led into it. We were told, and you'll forget probably every year what you were promised the year before. But I remember when artificial intelligence was coming in, and they said we wouldn't have to work very much. And they also said you'd be able to have online sex. Oh, I don't know. We're not going there. Anyway, with cybernetic astronauts outfits that you would pin onto your erogenous zones. Oh my God, this is for YouTube, isn't it, Peter? I told you I have Tourette syndrome. Don't discriminate against the man who's got a disability that he cannot control what he's saying. Okay. Anyway, I'll come back to that if I need to, my disability. But anyway, nervous systems. So I told you I was going to make up an answer, and this is my made up answer, and I leave it open to the judges to score. You can, at the end, we do a vote, what you think but so pay attention or go to sleep. Look at Jasper and Erita there. They're in bed. Every time they come to my meeting, straight to sleep. Okay. And also, I just say this about my meetings, that people do fall asleep in my events. And that's one way to tell the experienced Dave Oshana Enlightenment transmissionites from the newcomers, because the regulars, they fall asleep. They believe that they're able to come into contact with deeper states of consciousness when they close their eyes and they close their ears and they cross their arms and their legs. They believe that they're able to cut off their senses, go deep within on vistas of enjoyment and wonder, flying on the magical carpet into their dreamland where they meet all kinds of psychedelic monsters and mushrooms. I almost spat my words out then, because at the same time I was thinking, I don't want you to think that I am like your peers. Do you know what I'm going to say? Well, I'm going to tell you anyway, so don't get anxious. I'll make you wait a couple of seconds. What I'm actually going to say is that I'm not into psychedelics. Okay, just for reasons that I'm not going to go into. Anyway, suddenly the room became cold. Anyway, so I'm not into psychedelics. Yeah, some of you are wondering why. Or some of you actually don't believe me, perhaps, or even worse, maybe. So, anyway, but well, maybe I'll say why. Because a young man got in contact with Jason, who's here. Jason presented at Stoa last year, the week before me, and a young man in our group got in contact with Jason. And this young man has been doing something called the game. Peter will know what this is, because I've been studying Peter for a year now, right? And the game is basically how a man can be more manly and be what every woman wants. That's a charitable way of putting it. I suppose there might be other ways to put it. Anyway, so this is all psychology, by the way, apparently. And this man, he's been practicing the game in somewhere in Scandinavia. I'm not going to tell you the location because I don't want to give away where the streets that he goes out, and he's basically trying to find a girlfriend. Well, he's been doing the game for, I don't know, 6 months now, a year, something like that, and he's finally met a girlfriend who fits some of his criteria. They have good sex, and it's a passionate feeling sex. It's all about nervous systems, by the way, and relationships. And she doesn't drink alcohol. This is apparently very rare in Scandinavia to find someone these days who doesn't drink alcohol, is prepared to be monogamous, and you don't feel, I don't know, you don't feel like they're not connecting to you, but she's trying to lead him into psychedelics, and he's very much against, or was against, taking drugs like the COVID mRNA vaccine. He's very much against it. He's got a head on his shoulders, this boy, but she told him that she wants to have sex on a synthetic psychedelic drug, and he asked Jason, and indirectly he's asking me, because it will be a podcast behind Jason's paywall, or Jason calls it a play wall. If you just play with Jason, I don't mean anything like that, Jason. I know you're smiling already, but no one else is thinking that, right? But if you play with Jason, he'll let you behind the wall anyway. He calls it a paywall, he calls it a play wall. He doesn't really want to take anyone's money. Anyway, so so he's done an interview, or they did like a 1-to-1, and I commented on it. And Jason's hoping now I'll comment on every one-to-one, but I don't know if I will. But I said to this guy, I said, I'm really surprised at you. I'm really surprised that you're playing into Big Pharma's hands. You're prepared to take a synthetic psychedelic drug. You're entering into the pharmacological lobster pot. Who knows how you're going to come out? I've met 3 people now who flipped out on their first trip of ayahuasca. Now I know some people say, David, you shouldn't be talking about this. Anyway, I am. I don't know why. Anyway, but coming back to this guy, I recognize that he will do anything, probably like some of us have done or would be willing to do, because the prize that we want is intimacy. We want intimacy. And what is that? I don't know if I can do it justice. I'm not a poet or anything like that. But what is intimacy? And I would say it's being fully met. So fully met that there's no gaps between you and whatever you're intimate with. There's no gaps between you, and there's no lacking of content. Content. What a geek. No lacking of contact between your layers. I told you I've got Tourette's syndrome. It goes in reverse as well. There's no lacking of contact between along all of the layers and dimensions of what you are. So it means that when you're with someone, that person is with your mind 100%, as if they're riding tandem on the same bike. They're with your emotions, so that as if the emotions are oil on the effleurage hands of a Swedish masseuse. They're all over you, and there is no place left unoiled. So they're up with you mentally, emotionally, physically, intuition wise, humor wise, musically. They can complete your sentences, so on and so forth. You can complete it for yourself. Sorry, that seemed to be a joke. Anyway, so glad someone likes it. Anyway, at least one person likes it. That's good enough for me today. My motto is saving the world one person at a time. So I'm sorry if the rest of you don't like it. Anyway, so only joking. Anyway, so and I would say that, because I don't think you're just interested in nervous systems for some academic purpose. I think you're interested in nervous systems, and it's on a spectrum perhaps. You're interested in nervous systems because you want to, I don't know why I'm putting it over here, by the way. It's not normally where I put good things. You're interested in nervous systems because you want to maximize your pleasure, excitement, stimulation. Or you're interested in nervous systems because you want to attenuate your overstimulation, your ardistus, which is a Finnish word for anxiety. You want to reduce the amount of overstimulation, anxiety, panic, discomfort that you feel inside your nervous system. And I would say, I've got to stop saying that, I would say, because obviously I am saying it. I was listening to prepare for this event, I listened to last year's presentation that I made at the STOA, so that I could figure out how things run and who was there. I was looking, has anyone come back? Oh, no. I don't see any of the faces who I didn't recognize. I don't see any of them here, except Peter. Anyway, so yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So anyway, so I was watching it and I kept saying whatever I just said. But anyway, in my opinion, that's also unnecessary to say. In my opinion, one of the best, easiest, surest ways of draining that extra affect overstimulation from your nervous system is through another person. In fact, until another person arrives upon the scene, many people left to their own devices and hanging out in their own mind aren't able to discharge. Now, this isn't a sales pitch for psychotherapy or some mind body thing or anything else. This is very simply an observation that not until you come into contact with another living, organic, breathing, warm-blooded, I haven't tried amphibious creatures and reptiles and things like that, or insects, but not until you come into contact with a warm-blooded mammal. I think in the end it has to be a human being, which I know is difficult for some people. I know that dogs are much easier to get along with. That's right, co-regulation. I come across that word. Thank you very much. I came across that and finally figured it out a few weeks ago. I figured it out. I don't know how deeply people have gone into these things. I just don't know. Because when I look at the world of people teaching these things, I'm like thinking, you're teaching, what is it? Trauma awareness, trauma sensitivity, trauma preparedness. There's 4 categories of them. Thank you. Right. Anyway, so when I see some people teaching these things and they do it in a loud pitched, squeaky voice that is very grating, I'm like thinking, have they really embodied anything yet? There's been such a rush to I don't know. I mean, I hear that there's a rush all over America to get trauma specialists out into the field, but I actually wonder whether they've been properly equipped or whether they've just been trained up by some fly-by-night entrepreneur's company. Anyway, but push that to the side. I'm kind of, going a bit wide here. So as I was saying, in my observation and in my experience, it takes coming into contact with another person, a very particular and special kind of a person, so particular and so special that they're not really a person after all. Now, I know some of you will know what I'm talking about because you've heard the concept. You've heard some of you, not all of you, and don't feel left out. I will induct you into the club immediately. Okay? There is a spiritual club that says you can't get enlightened because, well, various reasons. Now, I have to try to remember. It's been a while since I was in the club. You can't get enlightened because there's no one there to get enlightened. Now, that's a clever concept. It doesn't help anyone, though. It doesn't help anyone. It just causes arguments. The last thing we want in the spiritual world, in this world or the world to come, are arguments. I was also thinking recently, I think this is very on topic. I was also thinking recently that the old ways of doing things, like burning witches at the stake, chucking people down wells, burning them in oil, putting them in various types of torture chambers, like the rack and the Iron Maiden and things like that. I think we can't carry on like that anymore. We can't do that to people anymore. You might be thinking, well, we don't do that anymore, Dave. But we do. Although we don't have the physical tools of torture anymore, we don't need to. Some of you will have heard of a Russian man. I told you I got Tourette's today, or that, oh, I'm seriously dehydrated. Some of you may have heard of a Russian man called Pavlov. There's lots of Pavlovs. One of them made a cake as well. It's called a Pavlova or something. But anyway, there was an Irish man called a Russian man called Pavlov. I don't know why this is happening to me today. This doesn't normally happen. I will just take a moment and explain to you what's going on. What's going on here, whether I'm deluded or whether I'm right, that's just the point. That's just an opinion. Is that I'm interfacing with so many of you, and you've all got so many diverse points of view, which is cool. Okay, it's cool, right? You've got so many diverse points of view that I'm trying to reach all of you at the same time. You have to realize that in our audience here today, we have people who speak English, people who have English as a second language. There are even people here who hardly speak any English. They just come here for the vibe. We've got people here who know about some of the subjects that I'm talking about. They know more stuff than me. And then there are people who haven't got a clue or think they haven't got a clue, which is why I think Peter said it at the beginning. I'm trying to talk in plain English. I don't want to use jargon. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, Pavlov. Someone might have to send me a chat message now urgently, because I'm trying to figure out why I brought up Pavlov. Anyone? Gives me a chance to have some tea, which I really need it. Behaviors, more, please. More. There's no such thing as a wrong answer. And remember, I told you that what's happening here is I'm connecting to everyone, which is quite complicated. Imagine that, keep them coming. Thank you very much. Right. Imagine, because I haven't drunk my tea yet. Right. Imagine that you are a neuron in the brain. I have to hydrate my neurons now. I think that's why I'm mumbling a bit. Imagine that you are a neuron in the brain. It's okay dealing with a couple of other neurons, but imagine that some of the other neurons aren't keeping up with the Joneses. They're not mowing their lawn. They're not painting their house every year. Okay, they're just not they're not lifting their weight. You're going to have to fill in. You're going to have to be the postman, the newspaper delivery boy, the local dog walker, the local fireman. When the other neurons are starting to die, I didn't want to use the word death. You know, it's triggering for a lot of people. Basically, when neurons start dying inside your brain, other neurons have to take on the load. Similarly, cutting to the chase, getting to the punchline, normally I will save this until the end. But if you don't open yourself up, if you don't come online, psychosocially, spiritually speaking, other people are going to have to take up the slack. they're going to have to go into crisis mode and help more people than their nervous systems can take on. They're going to have to overly empathize. How many people can you empathize with in a week? I think I can only empathize with 3. I mean, 1, maybe 2, 3 is pushing it. Have you ever been deeply involved in a relationship with more than one person? Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I can tell by the look on your face if you've done it. Oh yeah, I can tell now, definitely. Some of you are not even hiding behind your hand. And it's quite impossible after a while. It's quite draining. All those phone calls you have to have all night long, one person after another, day after day. It's very difficult. You see, we probably can only really empathize with only so many people at a time. It's rather like an artist. I was actually looking at a box of chocolates. I think it's called Lindt. You might know it's a fancy brand. It's not in here. Anyway, and I was thinking that the colors actually look like a very famous artist's painting. Wonders of wonders. I'm not really an artistic person, but I just caught it. I was like, that artist, out of millions of people around the planet, somehow managed to figure out a very pleasing aesthetic color scheme. It's a bit like what the Chinese sometimes say, according to a movie I once watched, that the secret of good food is in the sauce. I mean, that can't be completely true, but it is largely true. And I certainly know at my favorite Chinese eateries, they never tell me the secret of the sauce. They won't. I spend years trying to figure it out. So I figured that this artist, I think his name is Egon Schiele, which sounds like someone has been ejected from a meeting because they've been paid by a pharmaceutical company. But anyway, so he's got this painting, and there's only one, and I might be completely wrong. It might not be the artist at all. I might be, misleading you. But if you think about it, and I don't know if anything comes to mind, it won't come to my mind. If you think about it, the world's best paintings that you've seen, perhaps they have a very pleasing color palette. Anyway, back to my example though. Empathizing with more than 3 people is like an artist putting too many colors on their palette board. Too many colors doesn't give them more possibilities. I mean, you think that it would, but it may introduce more confusion. And anyway, how many colors can live on a palette board anyway? I have this conversation about my kitchen frequently. I call it my kitchen. I'm not the only user of my kitchen, but as far as I'm concerned, I am the most frequent user of the kitchen. And I say the kitchen shouldn't be filled with things that will only be taken out once a year at Christmas time. But the things at the front of the cupboards and the drawers and everywhere else should be the things that I use daily as the chef, that I need in a hurry, otherwise my onions will burn. Similarly, an artist who is already caught up in an inspiration doesn't want to find pots and pans that have no use for them on their color palette board. They want to be able to quickly find the color that they need. They don't want to have to go away and recreate it or find that other colors have bled into it. This is an analogy, by the way, in case you've forgotten, it's about empathy. I'm raising the question, I suppose, how many people can you really empathize with? And at what point does your empathy degrade? And this is assuming that you're already open, vulnerable, and capable, when in fact, what probably is the case, as I wrote to this young guy, and I don't know if he's here today, as I wrote to this young guy who had been advised by some other guy in the last year, this other guy said, if you want to find your love partner, your soulmate for life, you should sleep with 150 to 200 women. And I said to him, I know, madam, you're shaking your head, right? And I said to him, so what about this spiritual, in quotes, friend of yours? How's he doing then? After sleeping with 200 women, has he found his soulmate then? No. He's still pining after the first woman he ever slept with in his whole life. See, I think that you'll get more out of my stories than me giving you an interpretation. You'll come back to these stories if you come back to the replay, and you'll realize that actually there's a lot of depth in the data. You'll come back with a new understanding as you get older and more wise and mature, and can only get more mature. And you'll realize things about stories that you never realized before. As you look at them with new eyes, as you yourself have deeper experiences. And I feel for this young guy. I really feel for him. I know what he's going through. He's prepared to turn himself over to synthetic psychedelia. He knows he could risk his sanity just in one shot. He could be thrown out of this universe, and he may never be able to get his space shuttle back down here again. He knows that. That's how desperate he is. And I feel for him. I wish he could find long-lasting love forever, as I do for all of you. Easy for me to say, I know, but I said it anyway. I hope you appreciate that. And I'm really just trying to capture something. The words aren't really capturing everything. They're just capturing something. It's like, do any of you get birthday cards or Christmas cards from your mum, or did you ever? Did you ever think, that doesn't say much? Yeah, someone's smiling. Or a few people actually. I can't keep my eyes on everyone. But the thing is that there is a person, I mean your mum or whoever, there is a person who probably is trying more than you could possibly imagine to communicate love and caring and concern and other things too. I look, I counsel people. I can't, I don't want to say what they tell me, but I won't bring it in here. but I'll stick with the positives, because in this season, after we have had a brief reprieve from draconian measures that never worked. I mean, never worked like they were supposed to work, as we were told they will work. During this time, I'm deciding to, I hope Pete doesn't mind this, and I got into trouble recently this week using words I didn't understand what I was talking about. And certainly any Greek word, I won't know what it means. But to be less stoic, maybe I mean Spartan, like Spartacus, right? So I've decided to be more soft, Because as I was going to say a bit earlier, we haven't quite given up. We haven't quite lost. We're still in a society that, even if it's not really obvious, is still driven by a militaristic ethos. The codes of practice, the ways of dealing with people, and consequently, the ways that we find ourselves dealing with each other, and it really shows up in parenting. Even if parenting is more enlightened and people don't spank their children, and that's where, oh, that's it, back to Pavlov, you don't have to spank someone if just the tone of your voice makes them quiver and cower and break down. You don't have to physically touch them. And after 10,000 years of cultural indoctrination of the worst possible kind, most people don't need to be physically abused to be psychically, whoops, where did that come from? Psychologically, socially, and emotionally abused. And because people have a openness, a propensity, an undesired propensity to soak up abuse and to receive abuse. I don't receive abuse. I got distracted by someone trying to come in via the waiting room. I know who they are. And it's kind of funny, though, actually, the way they've written the name. But anyway, it says enter. So the word enter the room. That's what it says here in Zoom. Most of you can't see it, but I can. Anyway, it distracted me because it's on point. And that quite often happens. One of the things that might happen, and don't be too surprised, you may find a number of synchronicities in what's said here today and what happens to you after this event. Anyway, yeah. So people don't. So we live in a society that is militaristic, and as I was saying, in this season, I didn't say maybe exactly, but I'm using a very positive approach as much as possible, because I realize that although people talk about radical honesty, some people do. It's a brand word, by the way. I don't necessarily mean that. Again, I use terms that I've picked up and don't fully understand. I don't mean the brand name. It's a brand as well. But although radical honesty, encounter groups, human potential, 1970s, Jonestown. Oh no, that wasn't an encounter. Push that away. Anyway, but various experiments done on people in various ways. Any mention now, I think that after 2 years of people having their freedoms taken away from them, because that's what happened. After 2 years of people having their freedom taken away from them, feeling like prisoners, I think that we've lived through a 2-year prison experiment. You may have heard of the prison experiment. It's a psychological experiment. And apparently now in psychology, I say we, although I'm not involved in the psychological field anymore, we don't do those experiments on people. I hope you didn't see my micro smile. We apparently don't do those experiments on people. We just did them in the past, and for no reason whatsoever. Behaviorism, no one really used it. It was useless. And various things like that. You hear about all of these studies that were done on people, and then you're told, no, that couldn't possibly work. We didn't continue that. Anyway, but I see evidence of behaviorism, associationism, causing of trauma, and it's got to such an advanced state now, because after 2 years, well, you couldn't go and speak to your grandmother. I mean, if you can't talk to your mum and dad, you know you can speak to granny, right? Now, when you can't speak to your grandmother because you've been told you're going to kill her if you just breathe on her, now you've got no one to give you cups of tea. Got no one to say, there, dear, you'll be okay. I was like that when I was your age. Look, life is quite fine. Right? We lost that contact. I feel, I don't know about you, I feel that we lost contact. We lost contact, and the only way that we could get it, and we thought it was a good thing at first. I know a lot of people thought it's really good. Don't have to go to the office anymore. Normally there's something given to you, like the last meal. I'm not talking about Jesus, or maybe I am, before death row. Normally they give you something nice before they give you something bad. So people said, oh, we don't have to go to the office anymore. We don't have a job anymore, do you? You liked it so much. And now we can just meet online. Yeah, you meet online now. You don't meet people anymore. You got used to that as well. And why don't you want to meet people anymore? And I mean that in the most general sense to anyone who's got ears to hear. Why don't you want to meet people anymore? Because you find it triggering. Cancel him. Didn't they cancel Elon Musk recently? I thought he was going to buy Twitter. I think they cancelled him in the end. Now he doesn't have a Twitter account. I'm joking. Is that really true? No, don't. You're joking me now. Right, anyway. So imagine that, though. That would be funny, wouldn't it? Someone would probably email me and say, yeah, it's true, Dave. You're very prophetic. Anyway, but anyway, so but the thing is that other people, anxiety, panic attacks have got to such a fever pitch. And why? I said earlier that other people should be like a conduction rod for your anxiety. If you're hot, they put their piece of metal, just like some shamans do, I heard, around the world. They stick some piece of metal on you, conduct the evil spirit away up some trumpet, send it to some far-flung corner of existence, never to be seen again. Other people, the word was co-regulation. Someone put it in the chat box. I'll get to all the messages. There's 13 at the moment. I'll get to all of them, and so that it doesn't say 13 anymore. But other people would conduct away the excess of nervous energy that you have. Not only conduct stuff away, but, and maybe we miss this, positively give you something, but we don't have a word for it. The French do, though. Do you know what it is? Again, I'm speaking way above my pay grade. I don't really know any French. Yeah, the French have a word for it. Je ne sais quoi. Well, anyway, oh, even you're laughing, Michelle. You got a French name and you don't even speak any French. Anyway, right? So, but we don't have names for it. We don't, and because we don't have names, we don't have concepts. People give us something, or they could. But it seems to me that we've been living in, since the destruction of the Second Temple, some of you won't know what I'm talking about, the AD 70. We've been living in a time of enmity, causeless hatred, baseless hatred. It's not that we want to hate one another, we don't. It's not that we want to be shy, reserved, and retiring. We don't. It's not that we don't want to divide and conquer. Someone's sending me messages now. I'm bending my boomerang of thought now, right? It's not that we want to be reactive, but we find that we are. And I'm going to reuse a quote from Stoa 2021, Dave Oshana's talk. but actually it's 2,000-year-old quote. It comes from Peter's namesake, Saint Saint Paul. Anyway, sorry, I told you it's two R's. Anyway, so Saint Paul said, "Wretched man that I am." Close. I thought you were saying bring it to a close, Dave. I'm like, no, I've got half an hour, Peter. Anyway, anyway, so Saint Paul said, "Wretched man that I am, the good that I want to do, I can't do it." Will I be inviting participation? You're already participating wonderfully. Yes, I will be inviting participation. Just have to get there. Anyway, so I will. I'm sure I will. I mean, there's no point me just coming on here, right, and just talking. So, wretched man that I am, the good that I want to do, I find myself unable to do it. And I just want to pause there, and I want you to reflect on all the good things you wanted to do and say, all the loving, kind and wise things, the creative things you wanted to do in your life. Just like you to take a moment to reflect. Not too much if it's troubling you, but at least get the feeling a bit like, well, there's something here. I do remember, I've tried to bury it now a long time ago. Day after day, night after night, I wanted to do certain things, but I never got round to it. It's a constant lament that I hear, and more than I hear it, I pick it up out there in the zeitgeist. But it might be bigger than the zeitgeist. Anyway, so anyway, to complete what St. Paul said, "Wretched man that I am, the good that I want to do, I find myself unable to do it, and the bad that I don't want to do, I find myself doing it." I can't imagine a more wretched situation than that. That you want to do good, it doesn't come out. And you don't want to do not good things. But I suppose by default, if you're not being a channel for goodness, if you're not filling up your every moment with goodness, then something else is going to come in. And so implicit in what I just said is already the answer. You have to make yourself a channel. I'm not saying how, I mean, you can maybe come up with some ideas yourself, but you have to make yourself a channel of goodness. And I can't really define goodness for you, or maybe I shouldn't. My way when I interact with people is to lead them is the wrong word. I, like an archaeologist, I dust away the topsoil to reveal what's there. It can't be any other way. Otherwise, I would be making the person in my image. And that's not a good contribution to leave behind. By the way, I was reflecting and going off topic a little bit now. In my group, it's a very strange phenomenon. I say my group, but really they're just a bunch of people that come together. 1 in 3 of them have red hair. 1 in 3. One-to-ones, retreats, but mostly one-to-ones. But on retreats also. On retreats do a lot of interaction. Someone asked me a question. Anyway, so in our group, 1 in 3 people have red hair. I looked this up on Wikipedia. It's supposed to be 1 in 33 people. 1 in 33. We have 11 times more redheads in our group than the international average. There was a reason for saying that, but my mind's gone away. So I can't remember why. I mean, anyway, it's just an observation. Oh, that was it. So I was thinking earlier, I shouldn't have thought this. I thought this late science fiction cult writer, maybe he did really spread his seed everywhere. I shouldn't have said that, but I can't help it. I can't help it. I can't help the things that go through my mind. Anyway, coming back to what I said to try to smooth over some things here. And then maybe we go to interaction. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the interaction will be like anyway. I'll have to set some ground rules, which I hate to do, but I don't really. Well, I do. Anyway, but sorry. At the same time that ostensibly what I'm about and what we're about and what we really want is fierce, radical, open honesty and vulnerability. As I set out to do this, I have to tread lightly and carefully. That a heavy hand, an abrupt word, a stern, taciturn, so-called fatherly demeanor actually may cause people to go back into the trenches. It may, unfortunately, exacerbate their already spring-loaded trauma. It may bury them. Now, it's still going on in a number of spiritual groups, even therapy groups. And I mentioned encounter groups, and the encounter groups go back to the 60s and the 70s, where people would cathart and be naked and have sex, and in some places hit one another. I don't think they probably did that a lot. But anyway, sometimes. But in my observation, and it's mostly not being in every encounter group, that's for sure. I couldn't have been, I was too young. But in my observation, the problem was the stewardship of the group coming from the group leader. And the group leader, and I heard a case of this with a modern so-called you could call it human potential group that was based upon giving women orgasms every day. One woman left the group and said, I had to have an orgasm every morning. It was exhausting. Then she found out that the leader was also complaining that she doesn't like to do that every day. Anyway, so my point is leadership. When leadership is dictatorial in any way, firmly guiding and leading people, it may actually be leading them to exhaustion, fatigue, trauma, triggering. And so it's necessary to tread lightly. This is very difficult. Guiding people softly so that they open up without overly directing them or pressurizing them. It's actually a new world that we don't actually know. It's a language that we have forgotten. It's not something that is completely foreign to us, but all of our training, you might say, Dave, you're being presumptuous now, I'm trained. Right? All of our training, I mean from birth, growing up in our families, going to school, the things that have gone into the hardwiring of our nervous system have trained us to be militaristic. Whether we're making a defensive move or making an offensive move, whether we're laying siege to someone, whether we're going into subterfuge, whether we're practicing evasive maneuvers at night, whether we're doing assassinations, covert operations, gathering surveillance on people, we are militaristic. I can't believe I'm saying this. I told you I'm making stuff up as I go along. Otherwise, I would never have said this. But we haven't quite got it out of our system. And so my work, I reckon, this season is to soften. I used to say that what I provide people, I used to say this for years, is a fruit smoothie. And in that fruit smoothie are all the fruits, but you can't find them substantially, but you taste them all in there. But you can't find them substantially. And I said, and you want a fruit smoothie, you don't want a porridge. People think of oneness as like a porridge. It's not really a porridge. Oneness has got everything in it. This is talking about spiritual concept of oneness, not mathematics. But actually this season, to give people an easier time, I think I'm just going to give them oatmeal porridge. Put a bit of butter on it, a little bit of salt. That's about it. So they feel warm and hearty, soft, set up for the day, ready to go out there into life. And yeah, they won't feel so stimulated. They won't feel so titillated and captivated. They won't feel so on edge, but they will make sure stable, steady progress. They won't end up at the end of the day with a smoothie that is so sour that they can't finish it before dinner, and by morning it has fermented. All right, at that point, I retire from the scene, and now you can say what you want. Oh, but before I say that, I should say that what I personally am most interested in is I'm interested in hearing the sound of your voice, feeling the quality of your heart. I'm not into concepts, the names of personalities. I don't know anything really about anything. I just want to smell your breath and your sweat, basically, and whether your skin is warm or soft. That's all I want to know. I'm basically like a dog. I can say this because I have a dog. Anyway, and I think it's great having a dog and being a dog, and I think that we should all be dogs and just go around smelling each other and forget all the words. So basically, I just want to hear from people, know who's out there. People who know me. It's not a time to ask questions. You can do that another time. We've done it before already. If you're looking for a partner, you can say that as well. And that young guy, if he's out there, I don't think he is. He's looking for a partner as well. I mean, just like, after 2 years of isolation, advertise yourself. Put yourself on the mantelpiece or in the marketplace. Expose yourself. That's all. I mean, let's spice this up a little bit. But don't overthink it. Don't be too clever. That's my advice. If you see me blowing my nose, you know that I'm doing something more interesting. But you could say what you want. I don't want to, I know it's a big thing for some people to talk, and for some other people it's a big thing to shut up. So between the two, I don't know what's going to happen. Right, well, I think we've got under 15 minutes. Peter's got to make his announcements at the end. 26 chat messages. Okay, all right. So I think there's too many people on here for me to put my eyes on. So I think we're going to have to allow people, but just be mindful that you want to hear other people as well. You don't just want to hear yourself. You can always catch up with me another time. So allow participants to unmute themselves. Well, yeah, anyone can unmute themselves anyway. So off you go. I'm gonna turn my microphone off, and if no one says anything, but if you want to say something and you don't get in quickly,
Wild ride. Wild ride. You're very funny, and I appreciate that also. That's all I got.
I'll build on that, Diane. For some reason, in the last couple of minutes, the word performance artist has been coming to mind. And I've just been thinking about how maybe people are more open when they're expecting to be entertained than when they're expected to be enlightened. I don't know. But I've enjoyed a lot of what you said, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, the term spiritual performance artist came up earlier for me, Rosa, so that resonates.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Nice to hear you. I enjoy not smelling you, but it's nice to see you.
well, how are you smelling these days, David? I recognise your voice, even though I can't see where you are out there in the Zoom jungle.
You know, I don't think you can really smell yourself that well. I'll report back. Life's a little boring here in Maine. What are you supposed to put yourself on the market? No more girlfriend, working too much, but happy.
The song lyric came to mind. I can't tell you how I feel. My heart is like a little wheel. Let me roll into your heart. That seemed to summarize this experience for me. And thank you.
Hi, Dave. Manuela here. It's all about dogs. They're just amazing. We got a dog this year, as you may remember, and it was so difficult. I struggled so much, and then suddenly it all changed. And talk about heart and love and fun, and just like the skins you shed the minute you look into a dog's eyes. So it's all about dogs. Nice to see you all. Nice to see you all.
I feel warm. I feel very warm.
I'm, excuse me, I'm Pamela, and like David, I am basking in the sun here in Maine. I'm a newcomer, and I think it's only my second gathering, but I'm already enjoying some pretty amazing shifts. So much gratitude to you, Dave.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I feel like fairly surrounded by brilliance in the sky and in the witnessing of you and other people. Thank you.
Okay, right. Well, if someone if there's someone who hasn't said something or wants to say in the same manner, but I just say there's just a few minutes, so I just say, and you can hear I've calmed down now. I didn't have to. I don't have to sustain a monologue. For me, always. I mean, obviously, this has just been like a brief introduction, a brief taste, and I'm always interested in taking things further, and I'm always looking for ways to do that. My primary interest is making contact with people and their psyches and stuff. And more importantly than that, kind of swimming through the weeds to get to the waters of life that sustain everything. So it's not really about the weeds. They just happen to be there. That the first thing that anyone ever brings you are their weeds. Even when they're trying to hold them back, they're bringing their weeds, and they're often ashamed and embarrassed of their weeds, and they think that their weeds are their defining moment, and they're not. My last wish, my dying prayer, is that everyone should be known before they leave this planet. That they should be fully and properly known. I can't offer to do that for everyone. It means actually that the love has to be spread around, and that everyone has to do it for everyone else. and I'm interested in that happening. I want to feel that that is spreading. As impossible and as pessimistic as some people may think about it, I want that to spread across the planet, regardless of what happens in the future. Regardless of what happens in the future, I want everyone to know that they lived and that their breath was consciously recognized and felt by others. That's, I could go on, but I just go on to say that I'll probably hold another event, maybe next Saturday. I was actually thinking of talking about what's been happening in the last 2 years, and I still might, because I thought that I had pushed it away, didn't want to think about what was going on the world scene, but I realise it's still a rancid sore that still is a festering. But I don't know. I mean, that's just the topic. As I say, the greater thing is whatever excuse there is to bring people together or bake a cake. I like baking recently, so I started to realize I can do it. I'm like, I can do that cake, and I can try to do that cake and that one. Like, I'm very confident cooking, but baking was just too much measuring for me. I don't do measurements. Anyway, so there's an insight into me. He likes to cook. He was afraid of baking. Now he's curious. Okay, right. Well, I must be coming up to the touchdown, Peter, and I want to hear your wonderful announcements in due course.
All right. Thank you for that, Dave. Lovely session, and especially the lovely wish at the end. If you'd like to find more about Dave and more events, you can check out his website. For more events at the Stoa, you can check out the stoa.ca. That will be the end of plugging from my end. And before I close down the room, Dave, any final words you'd like to leave us here at the Stoa?
Phew. Well, I feel like I've said it, and I hope that in my kind of shy, articulate diffidence that I'm now showing now, it's not all performance. I hope that between the beats of my heart and also on top of the mound of my heart as it's beating, that something reaches out to all of you and touches something in your own lives, so that you're able to expose yourself, even if it's only to a blade of grass or a grain of sand or a star in the sky. But if you can find something more animate to expose yourself to, but don't drop your pants in public, not unless it's permissible. But other than that, go for it. That's my final words, Peter.
All right. Amen to that. And I'll be closing down. So Dave, everyone, thanks so much for coming to the Stoa today.